Hey, everybody. It's going to be kind of an odd start and an odd show because it was an odd day yesterday. All three of us are here. We were excited to talk about the best parts of the parade and everything else. Nate is now back. Obviously wasn't with us on Monday. I want to know what Nate thought about the Super Bowl, being there in Vegas. We have some fun things from yesterday again before it all turned. We're going to try to balance all of that. I appreciate your patience and your willingness to work with us here today. So we try to navigate a day that started great and ended horrendously yesterday. We'll figure it out and kind of process it all out loud all together. I hope you'll give us the grace we may need on that front. We'll try to extend the same to you, and we'll talk about it.
This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Like I said, it was an awesome day for Kansas City that turned into a heartbreaking day for Kansas City. Joshua Brisco, Seth Keysor, Nate Taylor, all with you here. Nate and I were out there for the parade in different spots. We can talk about that some. Seth is based in Minnesota, if you maybe are new or didn't know that. Again, what we're going to try to do here show-wise today is do some of this at the beginning because it feels totally disingenuous to any of the three of us to pretend like that didn't happen. But also, I don't know if anyone would benefit from the three of us doing nothing but talking about all those horrific events yesterday for a full hour. Again, we're going to just kind of figure it all out together. I did a little bit of the radio show this morning, and I have decided, at least for me, that processing it out loud and working through all of that together is good for at least the three of us, I hope, and hopefully good for you as well. So we will navigate all of that as we go. Nate, first, haven't seen you in a little bit. How are you doing right now?
Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. If you're with us live or obviously in the podcast format, I'm doing okay. That's basically been my intro to everyone that I've talked to today. This is the third time I've publicly discussed the parade and the rally and the aftermath of the shooting. I'm doing okay. I thought yesterday that I was going to take a full day off. I took my son Hayden, who's 8 years old, to the parade. I was not near the shooting. I was not at Union Station because I just wanted to be a loving father to my son. Holly was with me. The puppy Maple was with us as well. And so we were on 20th and Grand, which is kind of near the halfway point of the parade, if my memory is correct. And it was a truly joyous, it was a truly joyous experience for my son. And then me and Holly made the decision after the parade was over, or after everyone sort of passed through, there's going to be even more people at Union Station, which is going to be a difficult walk because there's hundreds of thousands of people. It's actually easier if we just go back north, go back downtown and watch the rally on television. And part of that for me too was I wanted to hopefully get the best audio quality of hearing the guys on stage. And I didn't write about the parade last year. I had no intentions of writing about the parade. Yesterday, I just wanted to make sure I was aware of what was being said at the rally. In the event that, hey, maybe there's something interesting or newsworthy for us to talk about today, or for me to write in The Athletic. And so life is timing in a lot of ways. And we made a decision that took us out of what turned to be harm's way. It's been brutal to learn more of the information that we've gathered as our colleagues have been on the scene throughout the last, I guess you could say 26 hours now, 27 hours. What the police department has said, what Mayor Quentin Lucas has said, what the fire chief has said. Obviously we have some interviews of the people who are at the parade that made a very brave and bold decision to help, apprehend the suspects, is what I believe we can describe them as. So, yeah, it was. I think the way me and Holly talked about it with Hayden is kind of the same I'll share here, but it was a great day until it wasn't. And I have many thoughts, I have many stories to share. I enjoyed listening to Tuesday's episode while I was, Monday's episode, I should say, while I was in the air. Coming back from the West Coast. But yeah, there'll be a place and a time for all that. But no, that's just, I've been okay. And I'm thrilled that there's not as many, I'm just thrilled that there's not as many victims as there could have been, given the large capacity of the crowd. I can't, it kind of blew my mind today when I believe, Police Chief Graves said that they estimate over or around 1 million people. So it's horrific. It's heartbreaking that someone has died from this, and it's even more troubling, of course, that children had to be victims of gun violence. But I'm doing okay. As best we can, sort of moving forward.
And the victim that you mentioned there who has passed away is Lisa Lopez Galvin. She's the one confirmed fatality from this right now. We didn't get a lot of other medical updates earlier when the police chief and fire chief both talked earlier today, along with the mayor. It was mostly people from the hospital. I think we were giving more of those details the day before, or yesterday. So hopefully it's more good news as we go. All of the news from the children who are hospitalized, many of whom had been affected by, have been shot. All of those kids are on a road to recovery. I think it may have been Jason who mentioned that recovery is subjective, physical recovery for sure. The mental anguish that everyone anywhere near there went through, and people who just love this city are going through right now, is also ongoing. Obviously, we're all heartbroken for all of the victims and the friends and family, and victims stretch a large distance at this point. Again, if casualties, injuries, everything else that comes with being on a scene like that. There was a clip from Clark Hunt that my dear friend Nate Bucati tweeted out yesterday later. And obviously Clark Hunt said this probably about half an hour before the shooting ended up happening. And here's the quote that Nate tweeted from Clark Hunt. "This is an incredible moment for Kansas City. All over the world, they know about this amazing place. Never in our history have we had so many eyes on Kansas City and so many people talking about this town." And that has a gravity to it now that it didn't have then, because then it was because people are watching the celebration. And instead now, the country has begun to extend moments of silence instead of the absolutely chaotic cheers that took up the hours leading up to that all throughout downtown Kansas City. I don't want moments of silence. I want the celebrations. I like it loud when we're talking about what makes this city so great. It also reiterates to me that the parade yesterday wasn't for the Chiefs. Drew Tranquil, in a thing that was funny at the time and will one day be funny again, had a hell of a day leading up down the parade route. He said something like, "Hey, this doesn't happen in LA." And he's right for two reasons. One is because the Chargers don't win Super Bowls. And the other is that this doesn't happen like this in other cities. Yesterday wasn't the Chiefs parade. It was Kansas City's parade. The intertwined nature of this football team and this city, and extending all the way up to Minnesota and far beyond, Seth, the people who have love for this team and for this city are all affected by it. And the two very personal moments for me that I just figured I'd share because we're here is one, it's the first time I've ever had to reply to the texts of, "Are you okay? Where are you? Were you at the parade?" et cetera, et cetera. Something that is unfortunately extremely common in America, just hasn't been extremely common here. The other thing was that pretty early on in the chaos, before we knew exactly what was happening, and the Drake, Jason Justice at 810, me and him and Renee were all in the Western Auto Lofts where Jason and I had done the show from. And at one point, overlooking the balcony out onto the street, I saw an ambulance just go tearing down Grand, kicking up a huge cloud of confetti. And that is one of the more surreal post-apocalyptic scenes I've ever seen. An ambulance, sirens on, wailing down Grand, kicking up the confetti of celebration to go pick up victims, while Drake on the police scanner was listening to the requests for hospitals to report how many critical care patients they could take, how many level 1 trauma spots they had, or whatever the terms were.
And the other thing too, not only was it a parade about Kansas City, but it was a parade for children.
Yeah.
I cannot stress enough that the majority of school districts in the Kansas City metro area and surrounding areas canceled school yesterday for children to go to the parade. One of those school districts is, where my son goes to school. And so he, Holly and Hayden picked me up from the airport, late Monday night. And one of the first questions Hayden asked me is, "Dad, can you take me to the parade? Because they canceled school." And I moved my work schedule around in order to do that. The weather was excellent, and I saw so many kids having a great time during the parade. Again, I cannot speak on the rally. It looked to be fun on television. It looked like the guys were obviously cherishing that moment along with fans. But yeah, yesterday was supposed to be a lifetime memory for children in Kansas City. And it's not going to be the way it was intended. And so I know there's been a large discussion about what the NFL is thinking about this, whether or not parades will continue. Although Quentin Lucas, the mayor today, reminded everyone that there is a St. Patrick's Day parade on schedule in Kansas City in about a month's time. Who knows how Super Bowl championships will be celebrated. Quentin Lucas believes that it'll happen still in the parade format, but with everything that was going on, for people from Kansas City who were in Kansas City who wanted a joyous civic pride day, that day was really supposed to be, for children to a large extent. So it is just mind-boggling that a sizable amount of the victims were children.
Yeah, the some of the details here from, as you mentioned, Chief of Police Stacey Graves. They had a presser about 10:30 today, and she said that it appeared to be a dispute between several people. 23 total victims now. 2 of the 3 suspects are juveniles. They've recovered several firearms. She called it a very active investigation. Likely 1 million people in the area. And at 23, I believe, then shot with 9 children. Again, I had 22 from yesterday, but if that elevated to 23 now.
Yeah, that was updated.
9 kids.
Yeah, that was updated earlier this afternoon to 23.
I have 2 further thoughts that I want to share, and then I'll let you guys kind of decide what else. And Seth, I know you haven't said anything because you weren't down there, and I understand that, but I also value your perspective for a number of reasons in this particular case. One thing that is just gonna make like 6 people in the comments mad, and I understand that and I'm cool with it, is that there were 800 police officers there. 800. And 800 for 1 million people, maybe that ratio is not that crazy. I'm immensely grateful for the civilians and the officers who stepped up in those moments. But so much damage was already done. I know we're not going to probably break any new like policy ground here today, but you had 800 police officers, good guys with guns, and you still saw the carnage that we saw there yesterday. I don't necessarily want to go through the entire debate that I am sort of tempted to have, but I would like to rule out the idea that a few more guns on the premises would have stopped anything. And I don't know if that conversation's ever coming back. But in addition to the officers that rushed into the scene, the fans who tackled one of the suspects and got a enormous gun away from perhaps a juvenile, because again, 2 of the 3 suspects are, according to the chief of police. I am very thankful for the helpers in that moment. Also, the medical professionals and the people who jumped into action on site, and the medical professionals who were ready and trained and prepared for when victims started showing up. Because I don't know the state of these 9 kids that were rushed to Children's Mercy, but without, and this is also my own ongoing appreciation for medical professionals in times of crisis. If I would have had my diabetic line dancing with 5 years earlier, it probably would. I probably wasn't coming back. 25 years earlier wouldn't have even been a conversation.
Right.
The people being ready in those circumstances to do something bordering on the miraculous of taking gunshot victims and bringing them to a point where you can say we are expecting full physical recovery is an absolutely stupendous thing that I never want to lose sight of. The KCPD, KCFD, the medical professionals, the people who had a plan for when all hell breaks loose, immensely grateful that those people were there and prepared for that when they were. I think that's the majority of what's been weighing on me today. I'll let you guys decide what else is percolating for you.
The 2 things that are on my mind that I can't give an answer to Hayden and I can't give an answer to our audience is why would a person bring a gun to a parade? Which that question can obviously be extended to a number of public events. And then secondly, if this is indeed the case, how can we let juveniles get possessions of guns to make these kind of life-altering decisions? And there are no answers. So, are there not clear, concise answers, I should say? But those are the questions that that were pointed to me, and I've been sort of dealing with ever since.
Seth, one thing off the top that you tweeted about yesterday that also came up today, I do not have the numbers here in front of me. I will find them while you're talking about it. But the KCPD did say today they are continuing to look for more information, eyewitness accounts, videos, if anyone else was a victim and did not report, or, maybe it wasn't as serious for them medically as they at that time, whatever it may have been. They were still calling as of this morning for people to come forward if they have any more information. From your perspective as a prosecutor, Seth, how important is that in case there's anyone within the sound of our voice right now who might have something that they could share that would help find some justice in this process?
Sure. And for people who don't know, who are maybe joining us, who haven't been around, I'm a prosecutor in criminal and child protection law, and so that's why Josh asked me that particular question. I do want to say before I talk about that it's really good to see you guys. So,
good to see you guys too.
So, the way that it works, a lot of people make a lot of assumptions about how the criminal justice system works now because of the plethora of shows that are out there. The CSIs of the world, the Law and Orders of the world.
It's Law and Order, yes. SVU.
Yeah, there it is. And the multiple iterations of that. And people have a misapprehension about how much evidence prosecutors and law enforcement usually have. DNA evidence is remarkably rare, and things being on video is remarkably rare, including when it's in public. We're not Singapore, we're not various other countries, and there's pros and cons to everything, right? This isn't Big Brother with a camera
Right.
on every corner. But the flip side of that, with a certain amount of freedom, is that people assume that when there's a mass gathering of people, I've prosecuted some pretty serious assault cases and some other things in small level concerts and bar things, and obviously not nearly to this scale. But even then, when it's just 50 people, it's remarkable how difficult it is for for law enforcement to sort through what happened. And so you can think, and it's actually called there's a disposition or dissipation of responsibility that occurs. There's a famous case out in New York that they teach about in law school where a whole apartment complex could hear a woman being assaulted, and everyone assumed that someone else called 911, and that's supposedly a true story. And there's that dissipation of responsibility, and so what ends up happening is actually with these large type events, you actually end up with less evidence than you need because people assume everyone else came forward, and there's so many people that it's chaotic. And so what's important to remember, what I had people saying, well, they've got suspects in custody. And let me just tell you, there's an incredible gap from having someone arrested to having the evidence you need to properly charge them, then to the evidence you need to properly convict them. I'm a big believer in accountability and in the system, which I know probably a lot of people chortle at derisively, but I have to be. Because otherwise I couldn't do what I do and see the things that I see. Because I have to believe that we can somewhat mitigate damage, at least. And so I say all that as a long road to a short thought. Anyone who's listening to us, if you saw anything at all, no matter how small you think it is, it really could be the difference between a prosecutor being able to charge it out and a prosecutor having to make phone calls to victims and families explaining why they couldn't charge it or why they lost. And I have made those phone calls, and the only thing that a prosecutor can say is, I'm sorry. And I wish I could have done more. I apologize. Those are the cases that are very, very difficult, where you know something happened and you can't can't do anything. You can't mitigate the damage. And so I am pleading with you, no matter how little a thing it might have been, please, please, please call it in. Let them take a statement. Let them decide whether what you saw was important or not. It genuinely could be you saw someone walk by for 5 seconds with a backpack that matches what you saw on Twitter, or something like that. Because being able to associate possession with that individual, you might be the person who can help refute a false self-defense claim. Because you have to understand, our system works that we have to prove this beyond a reasonable doubt, which is incredibly hard to do. And it should be, right? I mean, we still get it wrong sometimes, even with that. And so if you know anything, or you just think let law enforcement and the prosecutors in the matter decide whether it's important or not. And that's my spiel on that. Coming from that side of things and prosecuting those side of things. The second thing I want to say, because we're doing a show today, is that, and I want to be careful how I say this, a lot of bad things happen. And there's usually nothing that can be said to make those bad things seem less bad or fix them or anything like that. And so would I just tell you, like, if you're someone who is kind of secretly hoping, man, I hope they talk about football a little today, and then you feel guilty for it, please don't. It's okay. It's okay to find joy in joyful things, even when bad things have happened. Because one of the worst things that can happen is you just only start to see the bad. And that's a really, really tough road to go down. A really dark one that leads to a lot of problems. And so I would just say I think that that leads to a lot of fear, that leads to a lot of just issues. And so I hope we're going to have an opportunity to chat a little bit about football, a little bit about some things at the parade that made me laugh so hard. That, I mean, it was one of the funniest hours that I've experienced online. And I'm just going to tell you, and there probably might be people that tune in and see me smiling and will say, what's wrong with you? And,
Rewind it 2
with how,
minutes.
yeah. And how, how could you possibly be smiling at a time like this? Well, I've smiled through a lot of terrible things, because those terrible things are happening, and hanging on to the things that bring you joy and the people that you love and the things that you love is very, very important. I believe that perfect love casts out fear, and I won't get into a big thing, but I believe that love that I have for you guys, that I have for the Chiefs, I know that's stupid and ridiculous, but the stupid and the ridiculous is what keeps you going during the horrifying and the tragic. So I'm really glad to see you guys, and I really hope that anyone who wants to kind of chat a little football, I would really like that. Even while we know there's more important things going on, but man, there were always more important things going on than football.
Yep.
And didn't stop us from caring, and still shouldn't, because there's enough love and caring to go around for even a silly sport where the ball is not round.
I think that's good. I'll tell you the phone number that the FBI Kansas City account tweeted out, which also has a link if you want to just go there directly, FBI Kansas City on Twitter. The phone number saying anyone who directly witnessed the shooting or was a victim of the shooting that has not yet reported it should call 816-413-3477. Again, that's all on the FBI Kansas City's Twitter account. And I think we'll try to take that lead, Seth, and we'll take a little break here and come back and try to talk about some of the fun stuff, because it really was a hilarious hour or so. And I mean, look, as far as I could tell, I think Chris Jones signed a lifetime extension for whatever Brett Veach wanted to put on the check. That's how I experienced it, at least. So with all that being said, once again, I will bookend it to say thank you for extending us the benefit of the doubt that we will try to extend to everyone else, that this will all be kind of weird and kind of awkward and kind of sad and kind of terrible, because yesterday ended horrifically, sadly, and terribly. And if you don't, I'll take the other side of Seth's coin here real quick, because Seth already laid down that side. I'll say this: if you're at this point on the podcast and you're thinking, doesn't feel right for me to listen to these three guys talk about football right now, totally okay. You can stop it here. We talked about all this for half an hour. We'll talk about football for half an hour. That'll be there in your podcast feed when you're ready for it, if you're ready for it. Again, this is a very active thing for everybody involved and how everyone's going to process it. So no need to inherit any guilt upon yourself if that's anything that you're wrestling with. And we'll do our best not to do the same, and we will fail at that goal, but we will try. Let's go ahead and take a break, and we'll come back and talk about some of the fun and some of the football.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
Also, if you've been watching on the video feed, you may have pieced together, I'm sick, and that's not helping. So I will continue to toggle my mute button as necessary. Where do you guys want to start? We talked about kind of breaking the show in half, but we did not talk about what you wanted to lead off the second half of the show with. Nate, you weren't here on Monday. I would love to know what Super Bowl stories bubbled up to the surface for you. I also understand that's a weird thing.
It is. But, like both of you have said, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to read some of the comments, and we are obviously so appreciative of you all just wanting to spend some time with us. I don't know what Josh just did there.
Yeah, he's got to go blow his nose or do something that looks unbecoming, I'm sure.
Okay.
By the way,
which is fine. Yeah, which is fine. I'm surprised I'm not sick being in a large group of people for hours.
That is a lot of
yesterday.
People. I'm glad you mentioned the comment section, by the way, because outside of some Tucker having to do his job and great, I think one person, everyone is being just great, and it's really easy in bad moments for people not to be great. And so, thanks guys for being great. Just a bunch of great people.
Being great.
Were you naked, Josh?
I had to do a little. I love this new fuzzy KCSN quarter zip I have, but I had to
So
simultaneously my body temperature the last 12 to 18 hours has been a real challenge to fluctuate with. So I was very cold earlier, and then I just got a little toasty.
Okay. To Adam,
And I'm also blowing my nose and drinking tea like 24/7.
Yeah, to Adam Sheehan's question, Nate, did you manage to avoid the bug which seemed to hit so many people coming back from Vegas? I guess so.
Hey.
You know, it's you know, as I try to in legitimate real time, kids, wrap my mind or switch gears or whatever metaphor phrase you want to use. I don't want this to come off super comedic, but this is just where my brain led, and then I'm gonna have a very I'm gonna have
laughter's the only coping mechanism I'm capable of.
Okay.
Nate, so I mean, just let it fly, man.
Don't say that like you're bragging, Seth.
It's no. That was a confession. That is
Okay.
I'm 38 and I should be more healthy than I am given what I do, but laughter's my literal only coping mechanism. So don't apologize before you fire off a joke.
Brock Purdy played so well in that game. He really did. He really did. And I don't want people to forget that Brock Purdy played about as well as you could ask for someone who is in basically year 2 of their career as a starting quarterback, and yet it doesn't matter. Jake Moody, is that his name? Jake Moody?
That seems close enough.
He played so well. He played really well.
He had the longest field goal in Super Bowl history for a few minutes.
It's not totally all of his fault that Leo Chanel just became a superhero in the biggest game of the season. It's not his fault. Jake Moody played amazing. It doesn't matter. Steve Wilkes doesn't have a job. I learned that yesterday. And I said, what did he do wrong? they only scored 25 points in 5 quarters, guys. Do I need to divide that up for you?
He switched everything up too. Remember we talked last week where I said San Francisco hasn't changed up their looks or their blitz packages like all year.
All year, yeah.
And he had a pretty unique game plan that worked pretty well. Now, part of it was the defensive game plan was, what if our defensive line played like they were possessed for the first half?
Right,
and we found out. But maybe we also found out why defensive lines can't play like that all the time. Because by the fourth quarter, they're like sitting there on the oxygen and just But anyway, please go on. Yeah, he's out of a job.
Yeah, he's out of a job. When tell me if I'm wrong, Josh. 5 divided by 25 is 5.
I think it's 5. I think it's 5.
I had to remind multiple of my colleagues, reporters, after the game Sunday, not that I was like trying to scream at them, but I'm like, they only scored 3 points in the first half. I just want nobody to remember that. Or is anybody going to remember that they only scored 3 points in the first half?
10-3 at halftime, right?
Yeah. You know, it was a fascinating game. It was packed in the stadium. I'll never forget that. I did go to the spot. Because after Super Bowls, if you wait long enough, all the security measures go out the window, and anybody and their mom can get on the field. This is courtesy of why the confetti tradition has continued for so long. You know, but I went to the spot. I went to the spot where McCole Hartman caught the last pass of the NFL season, and where he entered the stadium, or where he entered the end zone, just so I could see it from like his perspective, and how wild that is. You know, and Holly's like, I sent pictures to Holly. Holly's like, why doesn't the field look right? I was like, well, you know, the paint only lasts for so long, especially once cleats and everything else gets involved. It all gets very dried out and it kind of chalky. But the field held up pretty well. I thought that was an interesting part of the game. You know, I think I read that Tony Romo got some criticism, but then I couldn't really. I mean, guys, you try being the analyst in the middle of a Super Bowl and see how it goes.
For me, it's the fact that 2 weeks in a row he's been surprised that the Chiefs deferred the coin toss and was surprised that Creed Humphrey had uncharacteristic low snaps.
Yeah.
Those are the two for me.
Yeah. Can we talk about the what's the guy's name? I appreciate him. How do you say his name?
You got to get us closer right now. I'd love to help.
Context clues are failing me.
Jim Nance.
No,
He's pronounced
no.
Nance.
The
Kevin Harlan.
The
John Wick.
reading of lips interpreter.
Oh,
John Boy. Was
John
the-
Boy.
yeah,
Thank
was
you.
the
Yeah,
accountant
I was
that did the
gonna
lip reading.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say
yeah.
Game Boy, but I know his name is not Game Boy. You know, him. This is how complicated football is, and I'm glad that it was caught on camera. Thank you to CBS. Finally, they had a homeboy. They finally had a number of cameras, so that there should just be camera operators on the sidelines, and I should be able to pay a fee per Amazon to just watch sideline interactions. Because I'm not even talking about the Travis Kelce, Andy Reid. I've seen that like 10 times, guys. That is not unusual. I guess it's the Super Bowl, whatever. But I saw him try to punch Eric Bieniemy, guys. It's not like Travis Kelce is an interesting character.
What he did on
yes,
stage yesterday was way worse than what he did on the sidelines to Andy Reid.
kind of true, because he was kind of maybe with us.
Pound for pound, someone tweeted he was pound for pound the drunkest man on the planet, and I think that's true. There's a lot of
Yeah.
pounds. He's a big man.
I genuinely thought just.
Did you
on a
see him hug
side
Nick
note-
Wright?
It was bad.
Nick looked
Look.
afraid.
Yeah, and people want to talk about various public behaviors.
Yep.
Would I want that to be nationally televised if it were me as someone? Well, I'm 16 years sober, but probably not. But
Yeah.
I am perfectly fine chuckling if that's find the difference between that and Jason Kelsey at the after party, other than the luchador mask.
Exactly.
Fair enough. I do think, just on a
But he
side
wasn't
note, I
asked
remember
to talk in front of
Yeah,
close
I
to a
know. He
million
was just-
people, Seth.
he's just vibing. So it was funny. I was just thinking to myself, even like during the speeches, I thought to myself, man, Chris Jones might be the drunkest I've ever seen anyone in like a full-fledged public thing. Now, I'm not going to say the drunkest I've seen anyone in public, because I prosecuted a dude that was sprinting down a highway nude punching cars. So, I mean, it's,
Willie Gay was halfway there.
He got close. This guy didn't look anything like that shirtless. I can
Oh,
promise
well,
you.
that's good to know.
But enough about
Really
how I
games
spent
having a
last year. Sorry, it's too easy a joke. But so I saw Chris Jones. I was like, that might be the drunkest I've ever seen anyone that publicly. And then Travis started talking. I was like, nope, I was wrong. That's the drunkest I've ever seen him. It was kind of like the world's longest Super Bowl. The longest Super Bowl kick, field goal. It lasted for like a minute, and you could tell they were all like, we cannot let Travis get this mic. And the players just would not have it.
They let
poor
L'Jarius
Travis-
Sneed talk. Okay, they let L'Jarius
Well, let his-
Sneed talk.
Let is
Doing a lot.
doing a lot of work there. Yeah.
So
But
the whole point of this is, God bless Rashee Rice. I too would come up to Patrick, because I really thought about this. It's like I too would come up to Patrick and say, "Hey man, I know Kelsey's the primary, because he's always the primary. This is something we explained to you guys back in the Times R era. The first indicator on any red zone play is 87. Okay, guys.
Oh,
and Fred Warner knows that. God bless him. Fred Warner played fantastic, and it did not matter.
not at the end. He played fantastic, and he couldn't when it counted most. And Fred Warner's one of the best. And I'm sorry, I keep interrupting.
He's so
you.
good.
Keep
No,
making
no,
such
no.
good
He's
points.
so good.
He's so good. And when it counted most, Kelsey created so much separation at the line
Correct.
that he didn't even need the mesh. Like, people are like, oh, there was mesh to have a big play. It did not matter. He had like 4 yard separation on Warner.
Derwin James
that
was
was-
saying, "Ooh, that don't look right," and he did that to me
Right.
a
No.
year ago.
Someone commented, I think it was Ben Fennell, I can't remember, does a great job breaking down film. He said Kelsey has a way with his releases, with his stutter, that makes guys like Derwin James and Fred Warner look like they've got a piano on their back when they're trying to chase him down. And it was just, anyway, you keep cooking.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. But he played so well, and it didn't matter.
And it didn't matter. Nick Bosa played well, and then they used his playing well literally against him. I thought it was the most disrespectful thing I've ever seen to a top flight pass rusher. We know you don't respect the run, and it's 4th and inches, dummy. That's literally what he was saying as he was running by him. I just like to think that, like Patrick saying, it's a naked boot on 4th and inches, you idiot. Where are you going? Watch the ball. As he's running for 8 yards and then slides to protect himself in the ball. But the last play of regulation before the field goal, I should say, or basically the third to last play of regulation is they have one play to take a shot at the end zone. Patrick chooses Travis Kelce because, yes, Creed Humphrey snaps the ball literally into the dirt. Guys, he's so good that no one will remember Creed Humphrey had one issue all season, and it only got worse as the postseason moved along. And the way Holly asked me is, why does he keep low snapping? And I said, yeah, because it's not raining, right? So there's no snow, there's no wind. We're inside. We are in as most controlled conditions as you could ask for to snap a football. And by the way, field's not wet like last year, or not overpainted, or there's not enough. Hey, we went from outside to inside. The roof was open, and they closed it, and they opened it back up, and there's all this condensation. No, none of that. It's been in the building since Thursday, and there is no roof. Well, I mean, there is no retractable roof, I should say. It's just a roof. So yeah. Why is he doing that? I don't know. I guess he gets nervous. I would get nervous too. If I was in that situation, and every play starts with me, delivering the ball to the best quarterback we've ever seen, in critical moments. He picks the ball up, so it's not a fumble. He picks the ball up, so it's not a negative play. He picks the ball up, so it's so that Harrison Butker can at least get an opportunity, and he picks the ball up so that he can target Travis Kelce. And I think somebody else said it in the comments, harping on what Nick Wright has said about, hey, he chose Travis Kelce because that's a low percentage throw to begin with. It's a back shoulder. It's at the pylon. Either it's a completion that's utterly insane, or it's an incompletion Harrison Butker could try. Within the 49ers zone coverage, though, Rashee Rice is just left wide open in the middle of the end zone. Problem is he a rookie, and I want to win the Super Bowl. So I got rookie enthusiasm and zest, and I don't care if he's the greatest quarterback on God's green earth. I got to tell him I'm wide effing open. To which Patrick Mahomes, in probably the best leadership moment I've ever seen, gets in the man's face, walks with him, and said, hey, can I say it, Tucker? I don't know if Tucker will let me say it in the private chat.
I don't think Tucker's going to stop you. I don't think Tucker thinks he can stop
you. He says, yeah, it's all good.
Seth, going to take out your earbuds here. I'll let you know when it's clear.
God forgive me. He says, hey, motherfucker. He snapped the ball. He rolled the ball to me. He rolled the ball. And then all Rashee Rice could do, and God bless his heart, is say, well, okay then. Let's go. Let's go. Let's do it then. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Can I give my hottest take here?
Sure.
I approve of every part of that interaction. I love that Rashee Rice in the Super Bowl was like, feed me. I'm open. Because you know what Patrick Mahomes needs in his life? A confident wide receiver who's not letting him down. And Rashee Rice hasn't been letting him down.
That is true.
He was right. Rashee Rice was correct. And so was Mahomes.
Yes. He rolled the ball to me, which I'm like, the fact that he doesn't say Creed tells you how good of a teammate he is, tells you how good of a leader he is. We all know who he talking about, but he not gonna put his name out there. Look, it's amazing that it is quite remarkable that they, even though you could expect it in overtime, even though the 49ers made a decision that I don't personally agree with, once I understood the full context of the rule book, I just want people to understand that it's okay to be stunned. It's okay to be surprised. Like, you could say, oh, I thought they were going to win. Not like this. I didn't. he throws, Patrick throws the interception in the third quarter, and I have to start thinking about like, okay, what do I write if they lose yet again, in back-to-back opportunities? What if what they lose, and what are the questions that are needing to be asked? I mean, you're kind of going back and forth as a journalist in both of those, and that you have no control, but be ready for either outcome, to do your job as best you can. And so, yeah, I just thought it was a stunning victory for them, when he's done it so many times. He being Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Andy Reid and Chris Jones and Steve Spagnuolo and Trent McDuffie. Seth, what was your best Trent McDuffie snap? Because you could literally pick from like 12 of them.
I think probably my favorite one. There were numerous ones where he ran Debo's route better than Debo did.
And the little in-breaking one's my favorite. It's delicious.
There was a little, and the great thing is I've actually got a snap of each of them. And by each of them, I mean McDuffie and Snead. That's who I'm writing about next. Hopefully tomorrow that goes up. And both of them had a snap from the slot where they just destroyed Debo, and they did it in different ways. But I think my favorite probably was that in-breaker where it just basically, so they're traveling right to left across the field, and Purdy just kind of throws it at Debo's feet. Like, it barely looked like he was trying to complete it, because really you couldn't throw it anywhere your receiver could possibly catch it.
Yes.
That was probably my favorite, but there were like, I think he was credited with 2 or 3 passes defensed. But I mean, he was unbelievable in coverage all day. Snead was terrific in coverage all day. He wasn't, and like on multiple snaps, this is one of the things I'm going to write about. Spags was like, okay, we're going to do, we'll do single high. We're going to play man. We're going to line up you on Ayuk. We're going to line up you on Debo, man to man, just go win. Do you have any idea the cojones it takes to call that against those guys? And they kept winning against it. Like when San Francisco had most of their success, it was usually against zone looks.
Yeah.
The Chiefs went to man against the team that you supposedly cannot go to man against. And
I think it was the most man of the Spags era for the Chiefs, and like the second closest was far behind. I saw that this morning. I mean, if that doesn't sound familiar to you guys, I'll try to find this.
Yeah.
It does, and I believe it.
Yeah, it's a great point, Josh, because not only did he increase the man looks, but what the Chiefs have done that was a tendency breaker is they have played a lot of blitzes with either complex zones or just straight zones behind it.
Yep.
He chose to not only go man to man against some of the best receivers in the league, he chose to go man to man with blitzes attached to them, and that is what we've always wanted. Chaos, engage 8.
Yes.
Fire them, like light them up and pray. Like literally light them, here's the one criticism. It's not really a criticism. It's not a criticism. Again, this is how my brain works. I love Tony Romo because he will do, I think Greg Olson's probably the best in-game analyst or color commentator about really explaining to you, oh my God, they should fire everyone on the Cowboys right now, and it's the second quarter from a scheme standpoint. But what Tony Romo says is, hey, on the basically the penultimate game-winning play, 3rd and 4 from the 9-yard line in overtime, Tony Romo says, based on the matchup, based on the look that the Chiefs gave, here's the guy that's wide open. And what's fascinating is that receiver's open on a whip route. Tony Romo also goes, why didn't they block Chris Jones? To which I would like to ask Tony Romo, yeah, you complete that pass to the whip route when Chris Jones is literally within seconds of devouring you. And one of the best things about Chris Jones that doesn't get talked about enough is he does not rough people. He does, he got through all the roughing the passer penalties a year ago, and he never committed one throughout the entirety of the season. So he comes back in week 2 harasses quarterbacks to essentially the same degree that he did the year before, but he eliminated roughing the passer penalties from his game. So not only is he chasing after you and your protection completely let you down, but Brock Purdy, he's not going to give you an easy out. He's not going to hit you in the head. He's not going to launch himself at you. He's just going to bear hug you and gently put you to the ground. So you have to get the ball off, or you're going to take a negative play, which either ensures a field goal or, which I thought Brock did, which I find very interesting, is I got to get the ball out of my hands because I don't want to take a negative play because that removes fourth down from the equation. Wait, you want me to come off the field? You want me to come off the field? Do you understand who their quarterback is? And you can see it kind of on Brock Purdy's face because I rewatched obviously the television broadcast. You watch on Brock Purdy's face like, man, I did everything right on that drive. I didn't have a negative play. I got away with a near interception that was kind of fluky. But I really tightened it up. I made a positive play to use check that I had no business making. We gave McCaffrey multiple chances to get us down the field. He didn't. I got the ball out of my hands on 3rd and 4th when we got beat on a blitz that we should have protected better, but we didn't. And my coach took me off the field. And then he just watched that guy systematically go right down the field. The statistic that blew my mind, and it was one of the last things I entered into my story in The Athletic. All right, man. It's first and gotta have it for the Super Bowl. Not the season, the Super Bowl. It's first and gotta have it from the 25. Cool. There'll be no incompletions on this drive.
Yep.
I'm sorry, what did you say? Yeah, there'll be no incompletions.
The incompletions have ended for the day.
I will complete every
gone. Do you got any in here? Nope. I don't have any incompletions left.
Well, I'm out.
Coach, if you call a passing play, guess what? I'm gonna complete it for a positive gain, unless Marquez Valdez-Scantling says, "Nah, I can break this tackle. Nah, I can break that tackle. Nah." I love that CBS was like, "Here's Chris Jones asking Marquez Valdez-Scantling, what you doing?"
Yeah, why? Just go down, man. Like, that's one thing Kelsey's gotten really good at, as he's apparently faster than he's ever been based on next gen stats, which, by the way, on a side note, I am all in for like rest helping snap whatever in Travis Kelce next year. Let him play 55% of the snaps because he was like a rejuvenated guy in the playoffs. Like, honestly, if they draft another tight end and say, well, he's more of the understudy, him and Noah Gray, they'll play a ton of snaps. Like, I'm all for it.
Don't hyperextend your knee 2 days before the season starts. How about you not do that?
Yeah. Take it easy, buddy. But that's, like, Kelsey's gotten really good as he's not quite as shifty as he used to be. He catches the ball and he just turns upfield, knowing that means he's less likely to break a couple tackles or whatever, but that it's going to be a sure 5, 6, 7 yards. Whereas MVS, he got spun in a really unlucky way. Someone phrased it like he got, I think it was actually the guys in the lab. They phrased it, he got penalized for his bounce, which is a bummer. But like, you got to sense what's happening and just go down or dive forward. And I love, like, all I could think about, that SNL skit where I think it's the Barry guy. Where he does the whole, this place has everything. And he starts to list all these things that, like, say in a club. All I could think of when MVS did that was like, this game has everything. It's got an inexplicable interception, some weird calls, an MVS weird moment. Like that's all I could think about was like, this game has everything. So
Vegas' hottest new club is Allegiant Stadium. Yeah. It took me a while for me to understand the impression you were doing there, but we got there eventually.
The last third down, and I wrote about this on Monday. God, what day is it? Yeah, I wrote about it on Monday, but I wrote about the 2 blitzes, and there's one difference. Kyle Shanahan got on the first blitz, where I believe it's 3rd and 5, right after the 2-minute warning. Hey, I can't really do anything there. I called the wrong play. You got. The second blitz is more interesting to me because I actually think from a protection standpoint, it should have held up. You want your lineman, you want them to block Chris Jones. The unfree man is supposed to be, I believe, it's either supposed to be letting, I think it's Karlaftis on the end. Is that right, Seth?
I think it was Karlaftis at the end, and Reed was coming behind him on kind of like a delayed blitz.
Yes, and so my understanding is you either give up Karlaftis immediately with your protection, or what I think the 49ers were trying to do and failed miserably is block Chris Jones and let the deepest blitzer be the last guy to get there, which is Justin Reed. Because
Justin Reed was shocked that he was blocked, by the way. Like, you watch him, like, stop, like, why would you let him go? He was shocked.
Yes, so Kyle Shanahan actually adjusted for what I believe is a correct play call for that situation based on the previous exact same example in the last drive, essentially, that the 49ers had. Problem is they don't block their best player, and these little mistakes lead to losses. Even though you made the wrong decision with taking the ball in the fourth quarter or taking the ball to start overtime, you still had the correct play call for 3rd and 4. And I think that is what should eke away at 49er fans, which is he actually had the right play call on 3rd and 4, which means you should call another one on 4th and 4 and see if they actually execute it better. But there's all these little things that I just want to remind the audience of what led to back-to-back Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. It is a missed blocking assignment when the guy coming from the farthest needs to be the one who's unblocked. It's a touchdown. Hallelujah. We finally beat L'Jarius Sneed in man coverage with Jawan Jennings. Is he about to win the MVP? And our freaking extra point just got blocked by Leo Chenal. It goes from we're going to put Leo Chenal in hell in the first quarter to we haven't scored a touchdown in the first quarter. Okay. In fact, he forced a fumble on the best running back in football. It's all these little things that let Mahomes become the hero at the end of the game. Steve Spagnuolo calling the right blitzes, not being afraid to call blitzes. And I think that message was conveyed to his defensive players, like, hey, if I'm not calling plays scared, you know how I feel. So go out and execute it the way that you all should feel. And I think that had a very cumulative effect on the defense. And then lastly, it's 2nd and 24 because your most experienced wide receiver caught a pass for 6 yards and lost 8. Okay. What about Rashee Rice? Even though I just mother bleeped him. And oh my God, they're blitzing. And I'm going to tell them that they're blitzing, and they're still going to do it? What the hell? Okay. 14-yard completion on 3rd and gotta have it. Wow. And okay. Wow, they actually played pretty good zone coverage. And I'm just going to run for 14 yards. And I'm sorry, Fred Warner, you're in the proper place, but not anymore. And somehow I'm faster than you? That seems really strange, isn't it? And I'm just going to get 14 more yards on the ground. And I honestly think Andy Reid's best play call was not the touchdown play. It was actually the play before, where he somehow gets the ball to Travis Kelce in the middle of the field, and then Travis Kelce evades like 6 tacklers to set up the 3-yard touchdown for McCole Hardman. So there's all these, there's so many little things that led to them winning, and it's just it is I know you guys talked about it to a degree on Monday, but it is still shocking to me that they won that game, how they won it in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll keep breaking it down as Seth keeps going through the film. We're going to get to talk about specific players. And so, like Monday, we'll talk about McDuffie and L'Jarius Sneed. But I have the Spags.
Hey, Nate Dogg, they erased George Kittle with Charmari Connor and Leo Chenal.
Yeah.
That's why your team is world champions. They could barely get George Kittle open on 4th and gotta have it with Justin Reed covering him.
Right.
And Justin Reed was like, well, I have to honor the fact that he could run past the sticks. Oh, he's just running towards the sticks. Like, you can see that in coverage. He's like, well, I gotta give him some cushion, so that I don't give up a touchdown on 4th down instead of just giving up the conversion. But no, they how did they erase Kittle? With Charmari, he sucked in OTA's Connor and Leo Chenal, who, by the way, had one of the more impressive performances from start to finish of anybody in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So I have the stats about the Chiefs running man, and there's a couple of replies about Spags telling Albert Breer this wasn't the game plan originally. I haven't checked all that. I've not followed all that rabbit hole. But the raw numbers here from Robert Mays of the Athletic Football Show. He tweeted, per True Media Sports' numbers, the Chiefs played man on 60.6% of dropbacks in the Super Bowl. Is that a lot, you may say? Back to Robert. That's the highest rate by a Chiefs team in any game of the Spags era. Previous high was 52.5% against the Broncos in 2020. They've only had 4 games over 50%. And against this Niners team with all of that talent, there's a good reply here from our guy Peter Yadrich. He said, dude just looked at Ayuk and Debo, said, nah, we're better, and was completely right.
Yeah.
That is amazing that worked, and my friends, it's amazing that he's not going anywhere, because the Chiefs announced the morning of the parade yesterday morning that Steve Spagnuolo has signed a contract extension to stick with the Kansas City Chiefs. Nate, I don't know if you have anything resembling details on what this actually means, because look, if you're moving vertically, if he's getting head coaching interviews next offseason, that he's still going to take the interviews.
Right.
But Spags locked down, Joe Colin got an extension, and the Chiefs coaching staff is looking remarkably stable for a group as excellent as it was this year.
Yeah, by them retaining Joe Cullen kind of tipped off that they were going to retain Steve Spagnuolo. Now, Andy's very traditional about these things. He likes to do extensions after the season. He doesn't like to, you can assume one thing, but obviously he just wants to go through all the usual procedural stuff after a season is over. The way it works for most NFL teams, and I'm going to try to get this confirmed, but I believe that Steve Spagnuolo probably signed, saying I don't know if it's a fact just yet, but he likely signed a 2-year extension or a 3-year extension with a 2-year guarantee. Now, all of that can be changed, of course, if you were to become a head coach. You see that all the time in the NFL.
Right,
but mostly the assistants are tied to the coordinator. So if you believe that Joe Cullen is back and Steve Spagnuolo is back, along with Dave Merritt and Brendan Daly, and the list goes on. Dave Merritt, did I mention Dave Merritt? I don't know. But as the list goes on, most of those guys are still tied to Spagnuolo. So usually what the case is that if Steve Spagnuolo has a 2-year deal, then all of his assistants have a 2-year deal, and you just continue to roll it further on. Now, obviously, if Spags was to leave, then obviously that could change sort of the way contracts are sort of structured. But I would try to get it confirmed that it's either a 2-year deal that's essentially guaranteed, or a 2-year deal that's a 3-year deal that obviously can have a kicker for the 3rd year to come into a play. So I believe that was the case when he originally joined the team. So it wouldn't be surprising that this is his 5th season. So that if you join the staff in 19 and you have basically a 3-year deal with a 3rd year kind of kicker, and then obviously you sign another 2-year extension, that he would be obviously up for a new contract after the 5th season, which obviously ended on Sunday.
Anything else you guys want to touch on? We're over the hour mark. We'll be back on Monday and continuing twice a week throughout the offseason. So we're going to have a long, long time. And man, makes you glad the Chiefs won that game, because we're going to have a long time to talk about what went right in that Super Bowl. And of course, we'll continue to talk about, Chris Jones's verbal agreement to be a Chief for life. And I think L'Jarius Sneed's on that path. Although he told Kay Adams he had 2 words for Brett Veach today, which was pay me. He said it several times. Actually,
which is fine.
It's great. No, he's right.
What is he?
He's gonna get paid.
He's a man of few words. People, you want him to say that, and he's deserved the right to say that.
100%.
I would like to be paid too. Does somebody want to pay me? That would be great.
It was strange for me to hear L'Jarius Sneed say something that forcefully on the media side. I've heard him say many forceful things on the football field. I know it's in there. It was a little bit of a surprise.
And it's worth noting, they have an opportunity here to decide really what they want the foundation of the team to be for the next 2 years. And by that, I don't just mean Sneed versus Jones, because there's a whole conversation that we're going to get to have about that. But it is interesting when you have McDuffie and Sneed, you can build your defense around 2 elite corners. Build 1 elite corner, you can, but it gets a little more complicated. 2, you just saw. You saw what you can do. There's still limitations there. And so, but you can also build your defense around an elite pass rusher. If you have all of them, you can build your team around an elite defense. So there's so many directions they could go here that I'm really curious about. And because, just in case I'm going to forget, we've got to talk about Treshaun Wharton and Mike Pennell.
Yes.
Just like out of nowhere. Like, hey, you know what? We are going to play really, really well
Are you saying
in the
that
most
there's
important game of the year.
Are you saying there's a theory with Mike Pennell in 2 weeks rest? Are you saying he should be getting the Andy Reid treatment as a player? You know, Mike Pennell on 2 weeks rest, kids. He becomes a destroyer of linemen.
He just like
Is that Trent Williams, future Hall of Famer? Where is he going? Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
All right,
it was crazy to see. It was like he was dominant on some snaps where I'm just like
listen, if you guys can't wait till Monday to talk about them, you feel free. I'll have Tucker put you in a 2-box, but I got a date with a shot of NyQuil here in a minute that I'm really looking forward to. So I'll tell you this, though. If you want more on L'Jarius Sneed and Chris Jones, that'll be on the Lab tonight, 8 p.m. live here on the KCSN videos. Nate just put up a finger and walked off. Not sure which finger it was. It moved pretty quickly. But Seth's going to have more film reviews showing up on the Chief of the North newsletter, and the Lab tonight we'll talk more about Jones and Sneed, and we'll have a lot of off-season stuff to bring as we go. What's up, Nate?
Okay, I have an ending to the show. Let me know when you're ready.
I personally am very ready.
All right, I'm gonna try to do this vignette very quickly. As you all know, we were in Las Vegas, and I let Holly pick the restaurants because I'm a loving husband, and she picked this very nice seafood restaurant on the Strip, of course, and sat down, and there was a older couple to my left, her right. We're eating, going through the certain entrees. Hey, did you get the tuna tartare? Yeah. What do you think? Yeah. Of course, everyone French seafood. That's hilarious. It was not French. It was just, I guess, traditional seafood. It was wonderful. But everyone's talking about Taylor Swift. Everyone's talking about the game. Everyone's, obviously here for the spectacle. And this older couple was from Boston, but they moved to San Francisco, which meant they were part of Niner fandom. And I'm going to show you something that this lady gave to me. Even though I told her what I did for a living and where I was from, what she gave me. Are we ready?
Yeah, I have a guess, like the way that it's leading up, but
She gave me something. Says you have to leave here with this. This lady does not know that I also co-host a podcast with two of my favorite people, to which had the 49ers lost, this was gonna happen. I don't know the lady's name, don't know the gentleman's name, but they were wonderful people. But she left, we left. I had to bring this back. Are we ready? This is mostly for visual, so I'm going to do the audio audience here in a minute. Are we ready, fellas? Are we ready, audience?
I'm ready.
Wait. Yeah! I was hoping it would be a bracelet. It's not just any bracelet, though. What does it say, Nate?
It says, Go Brock, number 13. And guys, I got to tell you, Brock, he played so well in that game. He really did. He played so well. And it did not matter.
Not even a little.